No, you're good. You get a trial. Yes. So had she been in for, because it's like, are they 2 years or 4 years? It's a 4 year term. And she had been in for 3 years. Oh. Right? No. I think it was a little tough on her.
There we go.
Yeah.
There's the big one. Hello, darling.
Remember here?
So just ran that. Is that all mine on the?
That is all yours. Yeah.
You do something to your hair?
I just got the old people out of it.
Oh,
Thank you for noticing.
the old people. I gave that up a long time ago.
Tell me
So
about
did
it.
Scott.
Wasn't a question of giving up. I just thought you could call.
There's an
That's right.
No, I started turning gray when I was 18.
My mom
And
too.
This hairdresser goes, I can put a color on there so you'll give you blonde highlights. I'll be chasing that tail for the rest of my life.
I was still in high school. I started.
Yep, me too.
I was 35, so I guess I did okay.
It was-
Good. How about you?
You still have that hair.
That's right. My brother doesn't. He didn't turn gray till he was. Wow.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Robert.
No. Okay.
Sorry.
Move forward.
So,
I mean, if you want. Forward.
Hi. Nice to meet
boy,
Yeah.
Should have been on this side of the fence.
all right, I say so cavalier. Anna's been dealing with it all.
There a sign-in sheet for public comment?
You're past that question.
Yeah, but they ignore lawyers. Okay. Were you able to make an adjustment to the agenda? sir?
Huh?
Hey, Michael, don't look so excited.
We have Michael behind me.
Yeah, Michael's on.
I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to read the packet while I do this.
Oh,
So I'm super excited. That's why. I have my tablet right there and it's big in front of me. Yeah, that's not the setup I have at the moment. So I'm working on that. So that's why I look so excited.
is that a race car? Sure.
That looks like a gaming chair.
It's a gaming chair.
Oh,
Nerd.
do you,
You're that nerd.
would it help if I shared the screen of the packet?
No, I mean, it's just it's
Okay.
a small version is all. It's not a big deal.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order, 6 o'clock. Thank you guys very much for coming. I will agenda. invite you to join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was a little fast too.
That's the important one.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul will not be joining us. We do have Michael off the remote. Public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to address the council for something that may or may not already be on the agenda. Perfect. Make sure you introduce yourself, where you're from, and jump right in.
Okay, my name is Karen Rutledge. I'm from Stevenson, Washington, 189 Northwest Delray. And I submitted a comment that you would have gotten in the packet, but you may not have had an opportunity to read it. So I just like to read it. It's pretty brief. I believe that the proposed changes on the BLA regulations are important and necessary to provide transparency to the development underway on the Maze property as well as any other housing development. Currently, the Maze have found a loophole that allows them to avoid normal rules and regulations that apply to the development of subdivision. These rules and regulations ensure that proper infrastructure is in place. This includes proper driveways, roads, sewer connections, water, and utilities. The proper development procedures would also ensure the community is informed and can offer input. Please vote to pass this BLA language as recommended by the staff. If we allow people to circumvent the subdivision rules, we'll end up with a tangled web, a mess of driveways, septic tanks, etc., and that will not be beneficial for our community. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay.
Hi, I'm Rick May. Okay, the fun of public speaking. Dear Mayor and Stevens City Council members, approximately 2 weeks ago, the Skamania County Superior Court ruled the Stevenson Planning Department and Hearing Examiner were making, quote, an erroneous interpretation of the law, unquote, by making unlawful requirements for our boundary line adjustment. This BLA involved moving 3 small lots within our property to a larger configuration closer to public utilities while solving access issues. On Sunday, 10 days after the Superior Court ruling and 4 days after this meeting, we became aware of the effort by the city to put Code Change 1183 on the agenda for approval. There was no public notice of the proposed changes in any other known media. The first agenda appeared to have no planned public comment period or outreach to discuss how this impacts Stevenson landowners until after public letters were submitted pointing this out. Why would that be when recently a citizen group helped the city create an exact path to do this? We also became aware of the possibility the city council adopted 2 reading ordinance change process may be circumvented. On Monday the 8th, Leanna Kinsley stated the council could directly approve the code changes at the city council meeting. Leanna stated, quote, it is a first reading of the ordinance and the council has the option to approve it at that meeting or hold off for a second reading, unquote. On Monday, August 8th, we discussed with Leanne Bremer, our land use attorney, the legality of the proposed changes. Her legal opinion was sent to you. As you see, the legality issues with this proposed code changes are quite significant. Code changes to any land use regulation should be well vetted, understood, and most important, legal. Citizen involvement where the public is given adequate notice of the proposed changes is necessary. City council functions well when given time and complete information to understand the ramifications of any changes that take away property rights. It is especially important to understand the legal risks to the city, the damage to public opinion, let alone the impact to our community. In conclusion, the city appears to be attempting to sidestep SEPA compliance law, written procedure rules for public notice, procedure rules for public input, procedure rules for true reading of the proposed code changes, no public outreach, and in legal counsel's opinion, clearly proposing unlawful code changes. It appears compliance rules, city procedure rules, and laws are being ignored here. Why? We have pre-existing lots on the land. In the recent BLA process, we took 3 of these lots not on a finished public road and moved them so they front on a finished public road that were closer to utilities. We also configured the lots to meet current zoning requirements. Yet the city appears to believe we are thwarting the subdivision process and the purpose of the BLA code. How can we be thwarting the subdivision process when the lots already exist? How can we be thwarting the purpose of the BLA code when numerous Washington Supreme Court cases have clarified this as one of the legal purposes of the BLA code? Trying to stop future BLA applications by creating potentially illegal code and a moratorium is not the answer. At the minimum, the city should follow the law and its own rules, plus be aware of why the BLA code exists in the first place. Thank you.
Any other comment?
Julie May has her hand up.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, you're muted. Yep.
Thank you. This is Julie May Stevenson, Washington. I would like to read a few sections of the letter that was submitted by Leanne Bremer, in case anyone hasn't had a chance to see that yet. I'll try to make it go as quickly as possible. On the comment of the SEPA compliance, it's noted that in the recitals for proposed ordinance 2022-1183, it is noted that the text amendments in the ordinance are categorically exempt from SEPA. There is no categorical exception listed in WAC 19711-800 for an amendment to a land use ordinance. On the contrary, this defines non-project actions subject to SEPA as including adoption of ordinance that contains standard controlling use or modifications of the environment. The proposed ordinance is more than housekeeping or procedural. There are significant substantive changes to the boundary line adjustment approval criteria that could curtail approval of BLAs currently allowed under code. If the city determines that the BLA is being used to circumvent the platting rules, for instance, also, an additional approval criteria is added that would allow the city to deny a BLA if it is being used to create a parcel that is heavily encumbered with critical areas so that it would qualify for reasonable use exemption. These added rules most definitely control the use of the environment and could result in more denials of boundary line adjustments. For that reason, the city must complete a SEPA process before it adopts this ordinance. WAC 197-11-070 specifies that until the city issues a SEPA determination, no action on the proposal can be taken. City Council public hearings and 2 readings. On the agenda for August 11th City Council meeting, ordinance 2022-1183 is listed under the heading Council Business. It is unclear why this matter is not scheduled for a public hearing. I now diverge from reading this and put in my own comments. After this letter was and others were submitted, the public comment section has been added. That's great. I feel like it was a mistake that the city hadn't put that in there before. Public comment is essential, especially for zoning or code changes like this. Okay, I'm going back to the text. Nor is it clear if the council will conduct 2 readings. Both of these are required in the city council's adopted rules found here. She submits an underlined linked text to your city council rules of procedure. Section 8 of these rules specifies that the purpose of the legislative public hearing is to obtain public input on legislative decisions addressing matters of policy. This proposed land use ordinance is a matter of policy on what approval criteria will be used for boundary line adjustments and could have a significant impact on what BLAs the cities will approve. In addition, Section 9 states that 2 readings of an ordinance are required except when there is an urgent need. This meeting has not been advertised as an emergency meeting under section 2 of the rules. Accordingly, before the city council adopts ordinance 2022-1183, it must conduct a public hearing and have 2 readings of the ordinance in successive meetings so that it can receive adequate public comment and input. Substantive comments on proposed ordinance. I would like to point out the addition here, new number 8 is an improvement on the existing language of the code. Now, since this letter was written, I'm diverging from her text. This line of code has since been updated after our objections. It now reads much better. However, we do believe the word adopted should be preceding city standards and policies. I propose and want to submit that this should read comply with adopted city standards and policies for access and will not result in a lot, tract, parcel, site, or division without access consistent with adopted city standards and policies. We add the word adopted because we have experienced other instances where this is applied. I now go back to the text. New number 9 is highly problematic. We realize that this language is borrowed from the Camas Municipal Code, but that does not make it lawful if it has not been challenged. This new criterion would allow the city to deny BLAs if they are found to circumvent the subdivision or short plat procedures or used in a manner that is inconsistent with statutory intent. Example include numerous and frequent adjustments or large numbers of contiguous lots proposed for adjustments at the same time. This criterion, if adopted, would be unlawful as inconsistent with the state platted statute in chapter 58.17 RCW. Firstly, there is no way for a boundary line adjustment to circumvent platting rules when platting rules must be followed to create lots. And a boundary line adjustment is in its essence, cannot create more lots. Secondly, it would be highly subjective for the city to determine if a boundary line adjustment is being used to circumvent platting rules if that were even possible. Land use ordinances must be clear in what they prescribe and cannot be left to the unfettered discretion of the city. Third, there is no prohibition in the state law on an owner recording multiple and frequent boundary line adjustments if they choose to do so, nor is there any limit on the number of lots to be adjusted in state law. What follows are a few examples that she cites to prove this point. On past cases, you can read this in the submitted letter if you feel like you would like to. I'm skipping ahead. Lastly, the proposed change to SM 16.37.020 definitions that says a boundary line adjustment is generally between 2 lots should be stricken. Not only is this not the case, but there is also no support in the law to limit boundary line approvals to 2 lots. It is also not clear how this sentence will come into play in the approval process, since it is not a specific requirement, nor could it be. If any owner requests an adjustment to 3 lots, will it be denied and on what basis? In sum, the maze urged the city not to include number 9 in the boundary line adjustment approval criteria, nor the language above in the definitions section in the proposed ordinance. At a minimum, the city should complete the required process to comply with SEPA and its own rules for a public hearing and 2 readings of the ordinance. Thank you. I wanted to have that read in case anybody had not had a chance to see that was submitted after these code changes were proposed.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
have a comment from Bernard, sorry. Did you have any more, Julie?
I have, since the packet was closed, received some more input from the public. I would say the general consensus is that it's disappointing that the public wasn't involved in this, that there wasn't more time to receive the public input. And in particular, they are saying it harkens a similar thing, especially with the potential of moratorium on the boundary line adjustments. Sounds a lot like the moratorium on single family residence, that the public had to speak up and say, no, why are you doing this? So in general, it sounds like public input has just been missed here. And that's unfortunate.
And what's the other comment?
So Bernard and Christy Vasari, regarding the same topic, we're surprised to read in tonight's city council meeting agenda packet of the proposed ordinance 2022-1183, amending SMC 16 and proposed ordinance 2022-blank boundary line adjustment moratorium. We regularly attend the planning commission meetings where these two land use proposals / ordinances have not been discussed, nor has the new public involvement practice been followed in order to inform residents of important changes, the reason / need for them, and to seek their involvement and input in advance of city council meetings. We're hopeful that the city council will delay any action on these proposed ordinances until both the planning commission and the public / citizens of Stevenson have been given the opportunity to understand the purpose for these proposed changes and the opportunity to provide their feedback and input on these significant changes to Stevenson's code.
Right, anybody else? All right, thank you all very much. There have been several changes to the agenda. Most of them are detailed there here on the agenda, but we will be moving things around a little bit throughout the evening. Consent agenda.
Wait. Do you want to get approval on the changes to the agenda?
Sure. Well, apparently they're not all on here. Sure. Yes.
So one of them is moving item 13 up, which is the council member interviews. And that would take place, not that before or after the consent agenda? After the consent agenda. And then the other item would be removing consent agenda item B, the right-of-way permit for the cemetery district. They requested that that be removed. They withdrew their application. So for the consent agenda, it would just be approving items A and C. And then if there are any other changes.
Let's see. We will honor the lodge's request to move up the water adjustment vote to the top of council business. If these changes are acceptable, then we vote.
Just consensus, if anyone's opposed to those changes.
We're doing a motion on the consent agenda.
Yes, so if you guys are fine with the change in the agenda, then yes, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items A and C.
I will make a motion to approve consent agenda items A and C.
Second. First and second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. All right, which does bring us to the announced change in order to item 13. We do have one applicant for the open position, City Council number 4. All right, so we will interview. So do you have some posed questions?
Last time council came prepared with those and I wasn't at the last meeting.
You want to move up to the hot seat?
Mhm.
All right. It's already one over. Thank you. You want your, no, I'm gonna take it back.
All right, so welcome. Thanks for putting in your application. You want to tell city council a little bit about yourself, where you come from, how you found yourself here, your interests, what else you do in town?
Sure. So I'm David Wyatt. I was originally from Spokane, moved down here with my wife about 4 years ago. And I work at the library. I worked in libraries in Spokane, and my wife and I had been visiting Southwest Washington, keeping an eye out for jobs, looking to move out in this general direction. And I saw the Stevenson branch manager position come up, and I went for it. And so we've just been real happy in this small community that we've found ourselves in. And I volunteer with the Stevenson Downtown Association. I'm on their board, I'm their secretary, and I also chair their design committee. Real brief version of it.
I read the application, said all the right stuff.
Thank you.
Any questions? Michael?
No.
Wow.
I'm just real curious. Why in the world do you want to get involved in city politics?
Well, I might be slightly naive, but I do have a sense of civic duty, and I haven't really done anything like this before. I saw the position was open, and there's about a year left in Annie's term, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to familiarize myself with it and see if it was something I'd want to pursue beyond that.
You got any idea what you're getting into?
I have a little bit.
You're smart enough to, it's a year, right?
I'm not saying that's smart.
Dip his toe in.
It sucked you in.
That's true.
Get started.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
It's been the easiest.
I guess the question is, does council want to go into executive session to discuss this further?
Entertain a motion. Your motion is presented in 13D.
Hold on, school.
I will make a motion to appoint David Wyatt to council position number 4.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay.
I second. Ha.
Under the wire. All right, first and a second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I
Perfect. The next part is you stand in front of the flag with me.
All right.
Baptism by fire.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Thank you, the box.
So it's the oath of office, and get you all signed in, and then you're going to take a seat. No, we're not quite prepared with a name plate for you, but we know who you are. Okay. I, David Wyatt, do solemnly swear
I, David Wyatt, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge
perform and discharge
the duties of the office of council member,
the duties of the
office
office
of council member
of council member
for the city of Stevenson,
for the city of Stevenson,
state of Washington,
state of Washington,
according to the law, to the best of my ability.
according to the law. To the best of my ability. Thank you.
Now it is your turn to see.
Here, yep.
Packet.
Yep. Mary did,
Oh, right.
Prepare.
Yeah. I don't know what to say, sorry.
Oh, that's
No,
funny.
Okay,
Fancy.
so
Yep.
you do have the agenda in front of you, correct?
I do.
So each item will have a like synopsis of what we're discussing. If you bring your computer or if you have your agenda, there's hyperlinks that will take you down to into the weeds.
Yes.
But if there's anything that requires a motion, it's spelled out specifically within that item.
Yeah.
So it'll say, like, for example, 5A,
Thanks, Rick.
to approve ordinance such and such, and we read it exactly the way it is. So you're familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, so there's a first and a second, there's no surprises there. So if you feel strongly enough to make that first motion, but the motion is detailed for you. Obviously, you're new and getting caught up to speed very quickly. Do not hesitate to go. Because we would much rather that you entered in with all of the information instead of feeling like you didn't have enough information.
Definitely.
So this is not a circus when it comes to getting all your information ready.
Yeah.
So try to be strict. I'm try to keep up with the when we do the public hearing and making sure everybody announces their name, but do not hesitate because this is kind of a big deal. So
Yes.
just nobody's gonna look, come on, and although that being said, we are obligated to be done by 10 o'clock.
And it's so much fun to vote no when everybody else votes.
I know, any questions? That's a loaded question.
It's like drinking out of a fire hose.
And you're not really sure who has the control at the other.
That's exactly right.
Okay. All right, so Liana.
Hearing, okay.
Oh, wait a minute, this is a public hearing. I'd like to open the public hearing at, we have here 6:28. Up first is the staff report.
So included in your packet is an initial two or three page list of all of the changes that are to the budget for 2022. A majority of them are just changes to the actual cash carryover, so the beginning balances, which then in turn automatically changes the ending cash balances. The ending cash balances are also reflected by any other changes to revenues and expenses that were made throughout the budget. Some of them are contract closeouts and for various reasons kind of rolled into the following year. A couple of them right off the bat are the community development block grant, as well as the lighting project, the energy efficiency project. And so those increased revenues for the CDBG, it also increased expenses as well, but it nets to zero overall as far as an impact. The approvals that were done previously for the ARPA funds for the vac truck, as well as for the brush mower, were included in the packet or in the adjustments as well. And there has also been an increase in training. A couple of them, one is for CDL upgrade in essence for 2 employees, because we now have a brush mower that may need to be trailered and moved. And so if we needed to trailer and move it with a dump truck, that would allow them to drive it. As well as I included some training for council, and it's on informed consent, as well as other topics based on what our strategic plan outcomes were for improving governance, and the contract as well for the facilitator for our meetings was included in that, as well as other changes. Another outcome from the strategic plan that's included in there is a contract or the budget for the GIS consortium. And so the GIS consortium is getting all of our maps for water, sewer, and everything into a GIS system, as well as the contract for that GIS system, as well as iPads, so that, or some sort of tablet, I threw the iPad term in there, for staff to use them in the field. And so that's, again, kind of improving from paper maps onto more sophisticated technologies. So
Have you had any discussion with the county in regards to moving forward
GIS.
with that? Carolyn?
We have, yeah, we've been in touch with the county as well as with the PUD has a pretty robust system that they utilize as well. So we are fortunate in being the city that we have access to the GIS consortium by the Washington Association of Cities. So we don't have to go it alone, and we have some good resources there at a relatively low cost.
Okay.
So were you thinking of something specifically to be in touch with the county on?
Well, I know that they have that Trimble unit.
Oh, right. Yeah, and they've
what-
offered that to us.
Okay, good.
Mhm. Yeah, and the PUD has another GPS unit that's fairly good, I guess. So they've both offered to partner, and we've also offered to partner, share our data, and
Good.
vice versa,
Yeah.
just so everyone's on the same page with their mapping. Because
Yeah.
the more that we can understand where everyone's assets are, the better we can avoid them or work together when they need to be repaired. When we go underground, we can all go underground together.
Yeah, when we first started doing our 911 mapping, the way that the city of Stevenson was laid out versus what was normal was way out of whack. And so we had a lot of challenges starting that whole GIS project. So good. I'm glad to hear that the county's partnering with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Bob.
And then another change on there is something called ClearGov. It's a system that will help create the budget packet, as well as visualization tools for our budget and actuals reporting that would be on the website. That's almost $5,000 this year. And then it'll save me a lot of time from trying to have those charts through Excel. And a lot of updates for the water system. We went with an engineer to do the projects for 2022. And so that's included in there, which wasn't previously anticipated, as well as the transfers to the system upgrades has increased based on some project costs that we are covering instead of going through a loan. And that is intentional. We're stepping our rates up to meet what the need will be when we have to pay back the mostly $10 million in loan in the next couple of years. And so we do have some reserves, and rather than keeping them, I would like to use them so that we don't spend as much as that budgeted loan amount. So that's sort of what the strategy is there. So it basically increased from $100,000 transfer to about $500,000. And we'll see it. And that's not all currently planned, but that's just potential depending on what change orders we see for the wastewater treatment plant. I think those are the highlights that I can recall. Are there any questions?
In reading through all this, me and my warped sense of humor, you've got a line benefit for employee benefits called old age survivor insurance. What in the world is that?
That
trying to
is
sign
through
up?
your
I
department. That is through your Department of Retirement Systems, and it is the old age. I mean, I think it's however much it is, that's what it is.
$25, yeah. Mhm. I
Yep.
figured that, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yep,
You thought she was targeting you.
right.
Just saying.
I have not delved into what that specifically is, but it's $25. I'm like, I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's. Mhm.
I don't have any other questions. Michael?
No, I went over this all and I didn't have any major questions on it.
You just answered all mine.
All right, we are required to do 2 touches on ordinances, so we will see this again next month.
Did you have any public questions?
Oh, I guess we have to do that part too, huh?
You did open it though.
So it is open, so I'm out of order already. Comments from the public. Anybody here have any comments on this matter?
I want to know, how much is it? So you said it's $25. How old do you have to be to sign up?
Well, right.
I want to get it, I want to sign up now.
You know, I think it's insurance related to our retirement setup. So, yeah. I can come back with more information.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, I'd like to close the public hearing at 6:36. Is there additional council or staff discussion? All right, we will revisit this next month. This you, Carolyn? Sewer plan update?
Yes. I didn't create a report this month because it was so short from our last month. I didn't have any new data to provide. So just in general, things are going pretty well. I think as I've shared in previous reports, we've had some challenges with our influent flows from the dewatering that they're doing at one of our other projects, the Rock Creek Force Main project. They're done with their dewatering now, so we are expecting to be 100% fully above back in compliance with all of our permit regulations. So Devin's done a great job communicating with the Department of Ecology on everything related to the wastewater treatment plant. So that relationship remains strong.
How are the fish?
He saw them the other day, so they're still there. But yeah.
That was my only question, was the fish.
Have you, is there any issues in regards to the fair and construction?
Yeah, I was gonna touch on that later, but we met with the fair board last week, the contractor and the fair board president and the county representative. And they're kind of the big concern that I had was that they were going to be drilling, but I just heard they finished all their drilling. So we expect really minimal, noise and
That was a
dust
lot of
impacts.
drilling.
It's a lot of drilling. Yeah, 10 holes is a bit. So super appreciative that finished up. Another thing the contractor has done to kind of support and partner with the fair is they shared that they would stop work during the opening ceremony on Wednesday. I think like midday. They'd stop work for that. So everyone should have a better chance to hear. I doubt any of the rides will stop, so that noise will continue, but there won't be any noise from the other side.
Thank you.
Just a heads up too, we've been receiving some information on equipment delivery delays due to the ongoing supply chain challenges. And so right now we don't know what that impact will be. They're working as hard as they can to move it up. No schedule impacts as of yet. But
Perfect. And anything else?
Not for me.
Okay, as discussed, we'll be moving up, let's see, 7G to the top. Do you have a report on this, Liana?
yes, I do. So we were noticing, and I think called the lodge when their bill was getting ready to go out, letting them know that they had a unusually high usage, and they couldn't find it. And I think after searching, they finally found where it was going, and it was going directly into their storm system. So it took them a while to, right. So it wasn't anything that was like bubbling out of the ground. There weren't any wet spots. And so it took them a while to find it, which probably contributed also to the high usage. But once they did find it, they did see that it was going directly into the storm drain. And so In the packet is a request for what their leak, what they would like for the leak request. The policy caps at $1,000. And then when we calculated it out, the calculation came out to be about $20,000. And then in their letter, they're requesting $16,000. So this is outside of the policy regardless, like if you were to approve anything above $1,000, it is unique.
Have we run into this before where we, because I mean, obviously, at your house, your bill is nowhere near what their bill would be. Have we run into this before where we have had a business that has had a large leak that we've written off anywhere close to this kind of dollar amount?
Not that I'm aware of. I think there was one where we did cap it at $1,000. And I don't know if that was for a business or a residence. And that was in the past few years. And I don't know how much over that $1,000 was. It might have been around the $3,000 range, but I can't recall.
So in the agenda here, you say it's going into stormwater, but in the letter from Kara, it was going into the sewer. So is it?
Oh.
No. In the letter, it says it was going to the stormwater and not affecting the sewer.
And not affecting the sewer.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Who's?
It's Ken.
This is your disembodied voice, city attorney.
Right.
So this sounds like, I mean, one thing we have to be mindful of is Article 8, Section 7 of Washington State Constitution prohibiting us from gifting public funds. Now, the only issue this typically comes in with in utilities is if the city had a production cost that was more than more than what they more than what they forgive, then that would be disallowed as a gift of public funds. Now, in this case, though, this is both water and sewer. It doesn't sound like there is a cost to the city, at least in as far as any treatment costs for this discharge, for this additional water. But as to the water portion of this, we ought to be mindful that the city does have some production costs in producing that water. And we don't want to be in a position where we have forgiven more than that water production cost. So I guess my thought, and I don't know how easily we could calculate that, but that should be a cap for what we forgive for water. The $1,000, council can waive that because that's just part of the council's ordinance. There's no reason constitutionally you couldn't waive that provision, but you really can't waive the state constitution. And so I think it is something that, I don't know if you guys can calculate that readily, but if not, you might want to either put this off for another meeting to make sure you've gone through those calcs, or you can certainly waive the sewer portion of it today. But you might want to have a look at the cost to the city and the water production side of this. I see Leon has a calculator, so maybe you'll get an answer to that. That's my comment.
Hey, Ken, and for council, Robert Muse, former council, I've been hired, but I also, my boss, I have to make dinner for. So Ken, that's why the reduction of 5,000 versus 9,000 plus, I took into account the potential cost to the city for that water production that was lost. That's why the request is capped at 5,000 instead of the entire water charge that was excess.
Great, thanks, Robert.
Right, the sewer charge, none of that water went through our processing plant, so it didn't cost the city a dime on that. It just simply, that's how it got calculated with the water usage at the end.
Right, but did you go through the established?
I only see 16,000.
It's in there. It's in
It's in the
the letter they submitted.
Oh, gotta go to the letter.
Page 138. But we're asking
Oh, I'm
to
there.
So the water
adjust the
consumption
16.
charge was 9,654.63, higher than their typical months, 2 months prior. So the request was for a 5,000 one-time waiver. I've said, and just to note, 13 years, 12 years on city council, we've never had a commercial entity that's requested an abatement of this sort. We did have one that was about $1,300 and we capped them at 1,000. But the lodge in 13 years since I've been here has never requested relief on the water usage bill. And Karen,
that's legit,
you're about
yeah.
to address the issue as well. Sorry. I didn't-
So it sounds like.
Thanks,
uh,
Ken.
We're aware. Robert.
It sounds like we're in the 50% department as far as forgiveness. It's or thereabouts as far as the amount of that bill that's being forgiven. And I that may well be that the city cost of production is on the order of 50%, but I just don't know. And I just think we have to be mindful of that as an audit item potentially. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Robert, for your input on that.
Thanks, Ken.
So the request is different than what's on the motion. Is that correct?
No, their request is exactly what the motion is.
It's just their request is half of their actual cost, or roughly
Yes,
half of their actual cost that was over.
yes.
Get
Yes,
on the water and then full sewer.
no,
So
the sewer
water
that they were
charge-
billed,
Okay,
they're requesting,
That part back.
they're requesting that part back.
I got it.
And then they're requesting half of the water back.
so the water charge is 9,654.
The excess water charge, yeah.
Yeah.
Based
So
on
half
the average use of previous months, which is what we use
And
to
then the
calculate out
corresponding sewer that's based on
Yes.
water. usage
average, right, yes,
contract.
exactly, yes, so.
So the additional amount is 9,654 we're talking about. The additional water charge. Correct?
I'm sorry. what was that?
Based on their average usage, yes.
The overage.
Right, there was a
Overage,
$9,000 overage.
Right.
That was, due to the leak itself. So
Mhm.
they're seeking $5,000 back. Well, it's 9,000 plus. It's not quite 10. And then the sewer charge, which was the excessive charge, obviously didn't go through city sewer.
There's no meter on sewer. It's based entirely on the amount of water that came
Oh,
in. Since none of that water went down the sewer, but they're being charged the amount of water that came in that never went to the sewer plant.
So
I'm
the
tracking.
motion just
Yes.
is weird because of the
Yes,
sewer.
because where it says asking for a one-time. So
Right.
got it.
The sheet is a water adjustment worksheet, so. Because again,
The
it's all
motion
sheet.
should be changed. To make
Okay.
it more,
To approve, just to approve the adjustment.
right.
Because it's water and wastewater.
Mhm.
So that'll be the difference to approve the water and wastewater.
You just approve the adjustment of.
Questions, thoughts?
I think I have it now. Just took a while.
So basically, we're talking about is making an adjustment,
5,000.
not 16.
No.
15,000, 5,000 plus the sewer.
Right, which was never used.
Which is the 16,000.
That is the amount.
Yes.
5,000 plus the sewer.
Yeah.
Is the 16,185.
Yes, yes.
Doesn't that sound better?
I'd move to approve the wastewater flow adjustment, $16,185.20.
Second.
Too slow.
The internet connection, man.
Gotta be quicker, Michael.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Dear diary. All right.
Council, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming.
Always good to see you, Robert.
Hi,
Always good to
Karen.
see you. Apparently I'll be back.
You.
You're welcome for changing the agenda.
Hi, Robert.
Thank you for that. I do. Take care.
Okay,
You going back up now?
yep, so we're back to 7A. Liana?
Okay, so remember how terrible the rainy season was here? And so, especially on our sewer extension project, which is the main D project, there was some additional trench work that they had to do. And patching, so temporary as well as permanent patching. And when they did the initial change order estimate and proposal, and we gave the work directive, it was one amount, which was under my authority to provide and to allow them to proceed with. When they came back, it was over 4 times as much. And so it requires council approval. They've already done the work.
Didn't council approve a ballpark figure? This is.
I think that was
This-
for the culvert. thing.
That was for the stormwater.
Which came in way under
Which
that
didn't-
amount, by the way.
Well, that's good.
Where does this set us as regards to the overall budget for that project?
So this change order is a quarter of the cost for that phase of the project. There's
Quarter
other
of the cost
of the main D extension. So the main D extension was about $300,000. And so then this one change order just is, it's a lot. But the project overall was done pretty well.
Okay, I'll move to approve.
Gaming.
Final change order number 5 for the main reconstruction project in the amount of $95,352.20 as presented.
Michael,
I second.
we have a first and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Cindy, Liana.
Originally, I was hoping that the sewer plant would flow into the main D extension and then Bob talking about the letter of support for a bill that is proposed by is it Congressman Blumenauer?
Yes, so I'm going to give the city council a quick update on what's known as the Blumenauer bill. And it is still in draft form. It's not very long in its formation. It came out in June and we've been talking about it at several meetings. And what the bill says is to provide for conservation and recreation enhancement for Mount Hood and the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area and for other purposes. So when you get a chance and you look at the bill, there's a lot of things in there. There's everything from enhancements to transportation, wildland fuels reduction. It's some conservation measures for wild and scenic rivers. And the Port of Cascade Locks contacted us as soon as they saw the first draft and started talking about the Bridge of the Gods, what potential funding might be acquired for the Bridge of the Gods. That led to discussions with us on this side as far as the bill was so Oregon-centric that there wasn't anything in the bill that would really benefit the Washington side. So they started talking to us about what do we want on this side. And I like to say that legislation is like making cookies. We're at the just mixing up the cookie dough stage. We haven't even preheated the oven. We're not even close to that. We're asking everybody, what do you want to see in these cookies? And so Cascade Locks has come up with several things. So there is potential funding for search and rescue. There's potential funding for, again, the bridges, some road systems, and I'll hand out some of these, which were, I made copies of. These are just some of the changes that the Port of Cascade Locks made so far. And it will give you just kind of a background. And the reason I'm here is to give you a background and engage you in conversation to say, what would the city of Stevenson like to see as we go forward in discussion with everybody who's been at some of the discussions. Leanna attended last week one gorge meeting in which we started talking about this and saying that, yeah, the Washington side hasn't really been included so far. And we need to start acting on what could possibly be happening. The bill may not ever survive. We don't know where things are going, but what we do know is they have to look for support from this side of the river if they ever want to move it any further forward. So they know that they've been talking with us on this side about what sort of things
that we might like to see. On the back page, it shows some of the groups that have already thrown in some support, but that doesn't mean that they have enough support to really move forward on it. So it's everything from search and rescue, firefighting. The tribes, at this point, they've had some input into this bill. They've liked what they saw. It's just a lot of stuff that if you go through the bill, and it takes a bit of time to go through the bill, but if you go through it, you guys might come up with some ideas that we haven't thought of. And those are what I'm here for tonight, is just to throw this out for you, give you an update, and say that you should all be kind of aware of what's happening and add some input while you can. So that's what I'm here for tonight. And if you have any questions, and by the way, if you didn't know who I am, I'm Bob Hamlin. So
I'll be an extra one of those lists that you have with the ideas.
I
I have mine. I have one of these already. If you'd like to have mine. Pardon the doodles. So Bob, a quick question.
Yeah.
About search and rescue and law enforcement services,
Yeah.
cooperative assistance. We already go through the Secretary of Agriculture with our co-op agreements for law enforcement, which includes search and rescue, that kind of thing. But by law, the sheriff can't charge for search and rescue. So Oregon can.
Yes.
And so, this doesn't surprise me to see this in here for Oregon.
Yeah, and you'll notice Matt English supports this bill.
Mhm.
He's on the list because he sees a benefit to their side.
Correct, yeah. So how do we go about changing the law so that we can in fact charge for search and rescue on this side? Because otherwise we can't do it.
And I don't know if there's some way we can put some language in that would make it reimbursable for, actions taken, because again, search and rescue, this is just within the scenic area. This
Yes,
doesn't include Gifford
right,
Pinchot.
right.
And, Title III pays for some of that.
Mhm.
There's such a mix of funds available that we've always been able to kind of pull it together. And that's, like I say, I don't have any clear ideas at this point to change language. And Mark Johnson over at the Port of Cascade Locks, he's the one who formatted some of this new language.
Mhm.
And again, part of it is the real difficulty in the changes between the Oregon side and the Washington side as to our legal standings
Yes.
on each side of the river. So, like I say, I'm just bringing it to your attention so that you guys are all aware of it. So,
Thank you.
May the public ask a question?
sure.
So Bob, we've got this beautiful waterfalls in town that we don't have really good access to. That would be an incredible tourist draw if we could get it. Is this something that could be funded through this?
It does offer up some money for recreational and trailhead sites. So one of the things that we threw on the list was Dog Mountain parking. And again, if there was trailhead enhancements, that would be something that you might be able to say. If you can spell out what you want and where it's at and put it in as one of the items that you think should be in the package. So,
Do you think that that's worth the effort?
oh, yeah. Part of the reason why this bill has gained any traction whatsoever is that the groups that like it are mostly the conservation and recreation groups. A lot of other groups are not so happy about it as far as some of the set-asides for wilderness areas and set-asides for wild and scenic rivers. That plays well to one side. Other groups are not so happy with that. Wasco County, when I've talked to their commissioners, they like some of the stuff because it actually helps them with their water system. Some of the stuff in there, they're not thrilled about, but everyone, like I say, when you start baking cookies, everybody gets their input. We may not like the cookie when it's finally, mixed together, but everybody seems to get a little chance to get something that they want put in. And that's the nature of legislation, and that's where we're at, and that's why I'm asking for all the input. So
So how do we get that input to you? In what form?
Well, send it to Leanna, so Leanna can be the clearinghouse that.
That wasn't nice.
Well, you can come
Well, no, so,
you can come
yes.
to me, or, yeah, just, right now, I've been attending meetings, Leanna's attended some meetings, Kevin Waters has attended some meetings as EDC director. And again, Mark Johnson is a retired state legislator in the state of Oregon. And he's been hired as a consultant by the Port of Cascade Locks because they have the means. They've recognized that if you really want to get things done, you need some expertise, and but Mark has been really great with working with us. And part of it is that he will help us if we kind of give him some direction as to what we want.
And so one way I can see, and this is kind of for council discussion as far as what would you like to see in it? We have a grant for water access, which that is part of it, is how do we access bodies of water inside city limits. And we are working on a parks plan. And we have kind of a trail vision through town to then connect with the Bridge of the Gods, and then further out potentially kind of again tying on to the Friends of the Gorge Towns to Trails initiatives. And so those are some of the things that we can see tying into the outdoor recreation bill. I don't know if the port has any waterfront additional stuff to, again,
I don't know what the
So,
port, we've talked a little bit with the port, but not a lot. Their big issue right now are the cruise lines, and that's what they'll be kind of focusing on. And the way you kind of spin the narrative is that the scenic area was created, it's drawn outside visitors in. We have to have facilities and infrastructure to deal with those outside visitors. So with that in mind, that's what you're trying to gear the asks around. And so you're really kind of trying to focus your ask dedicated to the scenic area and the issues that it has brought.
Bob? You had mentioned that they're reaching out to tribes and getting input from them. When I was just looking at this briefly, the only tribe I was seeing them explicitly mention is Warm Springs. Are they reaching out to the other ones that have access to the fishing sites?
So far, like I said earlier, it's been so Oregon-centric.
Yeah.
That they've reached out to the Warm Springs tribe, the Yakima tribe, they've just started talking to.
Okay.
And amongst the tribes, there are a lot of internal issues. So they will, have to reach out to the Yakima Nation and find out what they want. This has been an interesting process because this is kind of getting it in at the ground floor, and you start realizing a lot of what's in here may be gone and other things will be added. And it's just the chance to start talking about what we really want to see and whether or not enough support can be built within the congressional districts, because Earl will need support from all the local congressional districts that this impacts. So.
Can public have access to that?
it's in the council packet already. Yeah. And yeah, I started reading it and I kind of started glazing over just because it was so Oregon centric though. I mean, it was like it was a bill written for Oregon only. So again, trying to see what else we can pull over on this side would be helpful. And timeline, I believe they're working on possibly adding it to a bill that may be going sort of like after Labor Day. So it might be picking up after Labor Day. I think I have it, in the council packet as far as like drafting a letter for council approval in September. Again, it's the federal legislature, so we don't know how fast or how slow things will go.
And this being a election year, things are all up in the air right now.
Yes.
So it's not going to happen fast. And the other thing is the Port of Cascade Locks, they're very centric on the Bridge of the Gods. What they really want to see in this is some additional funding for the bike ped path for the Crest Trail to be able to go across the Bridge of the Gods. And they've got support from the PCTA Association. So that's, again, if they got the bike ped path built, and they land everybody over on the Washington side, that's where we start saying, well, we've got to have something to handle the hikers. Where do we send them? And it's not just for the PCT, but bringing them this direction also.
Michael,
Yes.
you have a question?
Uh,
Yes.
I first, thank you, Bob, for bringing this and kind of giving us a little bit of putting some color to it, because I tried to read it too and it was very not Stevenson centric. And number two is the changes that he passed out. Can somebody put one of those in my box and I'll pick it up tomorrow? Because
Yeah, so the
did
first
I,
2 pages of what he passed out are already in the packet. And
Mhm.
so he just passed out another little list of additional things, and I'll throw that in for you.
perfect. That's all I needed. Thank you.
And-
Yes.
yeah.
Yep, so I'm just here sharing information and trying to update you all so that you'll know where we're at and what's been discussed, and know that the discussion isn't coming to an end. It's just kind of getting warmed up.
So, well, first off, thank you very much. And if I would have seen your name on here, I would have afforded you the same opportunity to speak for the rest of this. But, so are we do we have a motion tonight?
I just, if you want to direct me to draft a letter, and kind of leave it vague, or, if there's anything you want specifically on there, I can throw something together and then present it to council.
And just so you know, Skamania County itself, we haven't taken any position. We're still studying it, and we, at this point in time, wouldn't offer any letter of support because it doesn't contain anything that we're excited about. So if we send anything back, we would say at this time, there is nothing there. We appreciate the chance to comment, but we're looking forward to the future and additional items being placed into the package.
Yeah, because the Columbia River Gorge scenic area is on both sides of the river, Earl,
Yeah.
not just on the
So-
Oregon side.
Well, as far as you know.
I can draft like more or less like a Mad Libs kind of letter, like
Yeah.
this in, take this out, depending on how it transpires over the next month, in essence.
So is
Or
there?
we can just wait. Like
Is
they
there-
are.
I don't know if we need to have
Is
a
there a
motion.
need for
No,
expediency
I
in
don't
any
think
of this?
There, like I say, we're just approaching it in that we're trying to study it and get some of this stuff in that would benefit us before we even take a position.
So what's the county's response? Thanks for giving us the opportunity. We'll be back to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right.
I like
sounds
that.
Sounds like a pretty good.
That sounds like pretty good.
Yeah. since we're not involved
Yeah.
yet.
So that's all I really want to do, is just come in and give you some information and update you. So
Thank you,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Thanks,
very
Bob.
much.
Thanks.
have a good council meeting.
Wait,
Thank you,
have
Bob.
to stay.
No, I don't.
Bye.
All right, 7C, looks like Carolyn is up.
First Street turn back agreement, well, it's washed outs now. They drafted a turn back agreement that makes it ours for maintenance and be able to do with it what we would like. There's a bunch of history and I'm not as familiar with that. But we do have a project pending that would provide some improvements. The washed out maintenance folks did do some deferred maintenance on First Street. If anyone's driven on it the last few weeks, you'll probably notice if they're not done. And so I did get a chance to meet with Bill, the maintenance supervisor, and he saw the same things that we saw. So there will be a little bit more work done on grading as well as striping and
Can we ask for some heads up so that we can give our residents due notice?
Yeah,
Or is that
but I
expecting a
think
lot?
they did it like yesterday. He told me September.
Yeah.
And then I drove into town and there were cones. So yeah, that sounds about right. But it's not on that. It's the work that they're going to be doing is not on the west side. So it's mostly on the east side. So I don't see it impacting.
It's mostly on the area that we're gonna be doing the work in. Yes. It's just after the retaining wall where there's kind of a dip. It's
Yeah.
the biggest part.
Yeah.
Okay, so no
Need a
residents
motion?
down there. It's just the back half of
Back of.
the hardware.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I expect they're done. 'Cause They were there like 2 days ago.
Haven't driven it, but yeah.
But yeah, I haven't.
And I started glazing over reading that one
Yeah.
So,
Watch that.
terminology.
Dave might be the only one that's not up to speed on the history of how we got here. So that section, First Street didn't go all the way
We don't
through.
have that much
I did give him an update before the
Okay.
council meeting, yes.
So you're
So,
kind of up to
The
speed,
ownership of that
Okay.
area. and
Yeah.
Affecting the grant for the overlook.
setting you up for success.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So yeah, the motion isn't to approve it, but it's to give the mayor to
Mhm.
have the authority to approve it once.
Once Wada gets her stuff in line.
Yeah,
That could be a while.
once we all see the same beautiful road we walk down. But yeah,
And you know, I did notice when you guys, like you pointed it out, that those double lines are not straight very often.
no. Yeah, it's more like, Bill, are you guys done? He's like, yeah, I don't think so. And
Yeah,
I was
no.
like, okay, great. So we're all seeing the same thing.
So once we take over First Street, where does Highway 14 end and where does it start again?
Yeah,
A map on there?
there is a map.
And are we gonna be plowing all of that ourselves as opposed to DOT trucks running through there?
We'll define it ourselves. Yes,
Okay.
I think we were already filing it anyway.
I'm not sure.
No.
where we were on that, but-
DOT plows it.
We
I've
plowed
seen,
it
I've
through
seen
that.
them run trucks through that, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, and they may still plow it because they plow one side and then the other. So I know the city of Stevenson, when we're going from one city street to another, we don't pick up our plows as we go over the county road.
Right.
So it might be a similar
Mhm.
situation with their.
Well, when you talk to Bill, you may ask him about that. of
Yeah.
Plowing and
Mhm.
if there's an associated cost with that. Because I don't know from my experience with law enforcement, I don't know the DOT too often doesn't do something for a cost. So,
Oh, if they're gonna, yeah,
so you might ask them how they plan to do that wintertime.
if they do plan to pick up their plows and drive through and put them back down. I can certainly
I
clarify.
can see that.
Because,
Seems so
because
silly,
they don't,
they're
they don't,
Driving through anyway.
because on 141, right at the city limit, that's where they pick up their plow. And even though 141 basically goes all the way down to Injun, in theory, but they won't plow through the city of White Salmon.
They pick up their plows.
but it's also similar, they don't plow through our downtown either. Part of it is because of the crosswalks. We have the decorative crosswalks, and so they don't want to be responsible for damaging those. So they also pick up their blades down through our downtown. And I think White Salmon, it was because they are specific about how they want their downtown plowed.
That could be too.
So, and the watchdog did not.
They didn't take that suggestion.
If you don't want us to plow it, then we won't plow it. You can plow it the way you want, yeah.
Not something I considered, so it'd be good to get clarity on that regardless of whether it's one way or the other, and there's a cost associated or not.
You ready for a motion?
Good.
I make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign amendment number 1 to the 1996 Turnback Agreement number TB 4-0063 upon approval of final road improvements conditioned by the Public Works Director. Get it, David.
I second. Here's diary. All right, first and second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I
Thank you very much. Yeah,
So 2023 budget calendar, is in your packet, and in there I threw out a date. for a special meeting to just go over the budget. Does that date work for everyone? I know. It was November 10th.
Okay.
It's a Thursday evening.
Thursdays are usually- Yep, that looks
You
good.
know that.
It's, isn't it?
You just
Yeah.
got here.
That looks good.
My calendar.
Okay, that work for you, Michael?
I will not be in town,
Okay,
I will be, yes, that should work for me just fine.
but I could do it by Zoom.
okay.
I'll be in
Um,
Leavenworth.
Are you thinking same time, like 6?
Yeah. And then the other point on the budget, is the CPI index. I usually kind of just get a general consensus on at this meeting. It's 8.5%. And that's typically what I use for COLAs. So I will review comp and get back to you at the next meeting. And look at budget impacts, so,
Does that mean my social security is gonna go up 8.5%?
right? So anyway, there we go.
Just thought I'd check.
Mhm.
Some of us are old enough to have social security.
There's not gonna be left one now there.
I work in the private sector and am not privy to that sort of, don't get those privileges.
Ooh. I'm sorry. All right, hey,
So I think that was it for the budget. Oh, sorry, Ben's not here. Do you want me to move on?
Yes, please.
The ordinance 2023-1183 is presented again. We do not recommend adopting it tonight. And we'll be talking with legal counsel as well as Ben when he gets back, and work on the rest of the process. I know what it looked like from the agenda standpoint. The backstory was Ben's going out of town and I just got back from vacation. So the Friday packet publication was rushed. And so some things were not super clear. Again, as you saw, it said draft all over it. We were actually working on a moratorium prior to receiving letters. So just letting you know, I understand the perception is off, but anyway. So there's the moratorium after as well. And the moratorium is to prevent any future boundary line adjustments while we work on amending the code. So if you have any questions on it that you would like clarification on, I can take the questions now and work with staff and legal counsel on clarifying those. Or if you have any concerns as well, we'll take the comments that were provided as well and work them into our discussions.
I'd like to see the public meetings on this ordinance enact.
What public meetings are you talking about?
Well, anytime we make a change to an ordinance, don't we have,
Workshop.
yeah, public,
We don't have
Nothing
a
in here
public
that says that
hearing
you're
on
compelled or
every
mandated.
ordinance for the city council policy, as well as the policy that's there. I mean, you could have adopted the ordinance for the budget as well. Tonight, you don't have to wait for a second meeting. It's your policy, and it's guidance. It's so.
Okay.
So Dave, are you saying that you would like to, not that we have to have one, but are you saying you'd like to see a public workshop on this? Or,
Okay, let's make sure that we understand the difference between
Right.
workshop and hearing.
Right. Right.
well, I guess not even works. There was, from what the emails that I got, and I know you all got the same thing in the letters that were already included in the packet. from both sides of whether people strongly agreed or strongly disagreed, there seemed to be a pretty decent amount of people on either side of that. And so I guess just finding, giving the public a chance to voice those, whether that's I don't know what format you think would be best. I kind of defer to you guys because we also this has to go through legal counsel and all that as well.
Can we table E and F?
Speaking of legal counsel, can I weigh in on this a little bit?
Yes,
Um,
yes,
Hi.
please do, thank you.
So, when I looked at this, it looked to me like it would really benefit both the council and the public to have a little bit more study and input about the item E, the actual amendments to SMC 16, and to make sure that there's adequate time to go through this, and also forestall any quick applications that would maybe frustrate the purpose of those changes. I suggested, or at least I agreed with Liana, that a moratorium might make sense to just kind of put the brakes on this for a little while so that we can allow time for planning commission study, for public input, for whatever the council feels is necessary to make sure you're making a good decision, and when it's in the public's best interest, and is also legally sound. So the way you do that is you put the brakes on with a moratorium, and that moratorium, you have to have a public hearing within 60 days. And yes, there's a difference between public comment and public hearing. Public hearing is a more formal process where you have a mandatory publication period in advance of the public hearing. And then the mayor, we already had one tonight, so you kind of see what a public hearing is. He opens it, he allows public comment, there's usually a staff report. So the moratorium does that. Be mindful of the fact that a moratorium, all ordinances do not go into effect immediately unless you have a declaration of emergency. That emergency would be in the form of, if you don't adopt it and have it effective immediately, you're going to get potentially a rush of applications. It could affect other people's property values and so forth. So in order to enact that as an emergency ordinance, you need a majority plus one of the voting council members. That would require all four members to vote aye. If you don't have all four voting aye and you have anybody who votes nay, what it does is it removes it as an emergency ordinance, it becomes a regular ordinance, becomes effective 5 days after publication. So you see there's a window there potentially where people can submit applications under the ordinance in its current form. So that's usually not desirable when you're making these kind of changes, or at least trying to analyze these changes. So it makes sense to me that you have the moratorium to give everybody a chance to study this more carefully. And then, you don't have to have the moratorium going forever, as long as you've satisfied yourselves that you're good with the drafting of the ordinance and you've heard all relevant comments. Then you can always lift the moratorium earlier. But that's kind of how this thing's structured. I guess in my mind's eye, I would have seen the moratorium as E and the ordinance as F, because if the moratorium gets, I don't know. To me, I think maybe the submitting the ordinance at this point was maybe a little premature. But I think the moratorium makes a whale of a lot of sense. That's my input.
Thank you.
Is open to public comment?
No.
So we should probably table this.
The ordinance, yes,
Yeah.
but I would like you to either make a motion or discuss further the moratorium.
Do we have
So
further discussion on the moratorium?
if I
Oh, there's
understand,
nothing on the table yet. It's not a first, not a second. There's nothing. This is discussion.
I just want to understand what Ken was saying to us. If we make a motion for this moratorium, it doesn't go into effect
That was,
immediately.
because we're worried about timing.
Mhm.
If we were to, even if we were to approve the ordinance today, unless it's an emergency, it would take, there would be a window of opportunity before it became officially enacted.
Mhm.
It has to be unanimous in order for it to be effective immediately.
Mhm.
If it is only 3 of you, then it is effective 5 days after publication.
Now, we're talking about the ordinance, not
We're
the
talking,
moratorium.
no, we're talking about the moratorium. This is the
Moratorium,
moratorium.
moratorium is also an ordinance. That gets a little confusing.
Okay.
But yeah, we're talking about the moratorium. I think at least it was, I got from the mayor that he's choosing to maybe rearrange the order at this point and look at the moratorium first. Is that more or less what you're
I thought that
doing?
okay. We'll back up. Your suggestion is to, and Liana's suggestion as well, is it's a chance to look at and discuss SMC 16. But this, even if it was considered a first reading, there was nothing to vote on today. But we do need to talk about the moratorium.
I agree. So I would, will you entertain a motion, Mayor,
Well,
for the moratorium? Or are we still discussing?
I think we're kind of discussing.
You can
All
still
right.
have a motion and a
You can
second
have a
and then,
motion and a
yeah,
second,
and
then you can
discuss.
discuss further.
Well,
well,
then
okay,
I'm
well,
un-
just by
Go
the
ahead.
order of the agenda, unless as a group you would like to move the order around. This is a chance to discuss with staff your thoughts on the proposed changes for SMC 16, unless you would like to just table that entirely until the next meeting. If that's the case, then yes, we will move on to the moratorium.
I think we should table SMC 16
I agree.
and it sounds like we need to make some sort of decision for the boundary line adjustment moratorium ordinance.
Is there anything that you would like to relay to Liana as her and Ben commence down this trail of refining the amending of SMC 16? Or just not really prepared?
Well, I'm not fully prepared because I'd really like to get the planning commission's take on this.
I agree with you.
Okay.
So remand it to the planning.
All right, so by general consensus, we are tabling 7E, amending SMC 16, and moving on to discussion of boundary line adjustment moratorium.
Well, clarification. So, I heard that you would like it to be sent to planning.
Yes.
Dave, you were also mentioning, and I think Michael was asking for some clarification as far as, public workshop versus public hearing.
Well-
to get public input.
But we have to have a public, if we go to moratorium, we have to have a public hearing within 60 days.
Yeah, on the moratorium, not on the changes to the code.
Well, I would be interested to hear what comes back from the planning commission first. And then make a decision on whether or not we're going to have more public input on that.
The only reason I brought that up is I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a semantics
Right.
issue.
Right.
To make sure that we were talking about the same thing, because a workshop is completely different than
Yeah.
a hearing.
Workshops are fun.
Sometimes there's cookies. All right, on to the moratorium.
Okay. Moratorium. I would motion to approve ordinance 2022-XXXX, establishing a moratorium on boundary line adjustments.
Do we have,
It'll be 1185.
so can you just do that again?
I absolutely will. I would like
1185 is your number.
1185. All right. I'd like to have a motion to approve ordinance 2022-1185, establishing a moratorium on boundary line adjustments.
Anyone? Second,
There is a first and a second. Continue discussion as needed.
So when we pass this, we're gonna be holding a public hearing within 60 days. Within 60 days, correct? Because I think it's important that the public gets up to speed on this. As well as us. But that'll also give us an opportunity to have the planning commission, maybe get some input from them in regards to this as
I
well.
like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the moratorium just pumps the brakes.
Right.
The moratorium pumps the brakes. What you're talking about
That's
is
this, and
is,
then
right,
the other
they're
part
two
is
separate,
16
right,
were
right,
Continued
Right, but they're
machinations to
connected though,
get to the
right?
point where one is approved and the other one is not.
right.
Right.
But the,
Once we get the information from the planning commission, we can have the moratorium go away if we
Right.
agree with what's going on there.
Yes,
Right.
we can
That's-
lift the moratorium earlier than the
I would,
whatever.
That's what I got.
I
from
would
Ken.
recommend lifting the moratorium when you approve the ordinance,
It would be in
Right.
this- it would be in this
Absolutely.
in
order.
the same ordinance.
It would be in this
For the-
order on the agenda.
Yes.
Right.
Approve and then rescind.
No, it'd just be within the same ordinance.
same,
There'd be a
all
line
right.
saying rescinding. the
Even better.
moratorium. Right,
Yeah,
We want the moratorium to be as short as possible.
right, right.
But it can go 6 months before
6
we
months
have
max.
to
Come up with a plan.
or change the time. So it's in here for 6 months, right?
Mhm.
So the 60 days is for a public hearing on the moratorium. It's not for a public hearing on the proposed changes to the boundary line adjustment code. That's a separate,
right,
yeah.
That was spawned by the same thing, different.
Right.
process.
got it.
Does this moratorium then, does it basically lock down any boundary line adjustment applications then?
It doesn't affect anything that's in process. And I don't know that there are any in process, but it impacts any new ones to be submitted.
Which basically puts the brakes on
Yes.
until, okay.
Mhm.
So, okay.
So we made a motion and seconded, did we?
That we are in the discussion phase.
Oh.
Any other discussion?
I look forward to hearing from planning.
So this is a 6-month moratorium.
Or sooner, depending on how long the process
Yes.
takes.
Can be extended if needed.
Or
Extended, or do we
shorter.
just issue a new one? Is it an extension?
It's an extension, but there's additional requirements.
Yeah.
So we have a plan. So at the next meeting, you'll see a public hearing for the wastewater moratorium extension, which we've done in the past as well. And so it comes with a plan as far as what your steps are to get it lifted in a timely manner.
Yeah, this is not a siesta. This is
Right.
now. It is. you can set
Active
it to-
movement on getting it resolved.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Yes, thank you very much. We already done the water adjustment.
Lots of information this month.
Is there anything we need to- Did Carolyn's map?
They did make it in there.
What page?
What page?
Oh, the what capital improvement?
155.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, page 155.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't love maps.
So when we first started talking about the capital improvement plan, in my mind, initially it was, let's be smart because it's so easy to make fun of cities that pave a new road and
then
then
dig it
come
up.
right behind it and dig it up. So in my mind, that was the first step, was to make these maps. Now this is, we've got a chart, we're gonna have it all charted out. So the map is gonna be something later. Fair enough, fair enough. But this plan has, I've been learning along the way as well. If you look at the plan and when you overlay water, roads, and sewer, and storm, you blend them all together and look at the timeline, it paints a picture of what the city's plans are. It's easy to look and get a grip on, or a grasp what our plans are. And that is why the public involvement is so important, especially, and also those developers and business owners to say, well, what if, why are you doing it that direction? What if I wanted to have a development over here this direction? Well, we'll be willing to entertain that discussion. So it does paint a picture. This is the cool little graphics that, maybe it's the nerd in me. It's really cool. I really like what you've done.
Yeah, that's nice.
Thanks.
So I appreciate the time you put into it.
Yeah, you're welcome. It has definitely helped me get a better understanding of kind of where we're going.
Being the new person in a job that, yeah, don't
Very
have-
good exercise.
yeah, I did.
And there's so much, so much more. So many more lines I'd like to paint. Rick leaving without his jacket.
Rick, don't forget your jacket.
All right, so a quick question. What is, Carolyn, what is the yellow?
Oh, I'm sorry. It should be green, blue, and orange.
Right.
The one that looks yellow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The one that looks yellow, it's
I go
part of
back
Ryan
to-
Allen Road goes down.
Oh, it's a skinny, really skinny one.
Bulldog
Yeah.
looks.
Yeah, that is what Google Earth thinks the city limits are.
What?
Oh, right, city limits.
The really, really skinny one.
No, it's right on Ryan Allen Road.
Oh,
And
no, mine was
it
yellow.
partially goes down
Is
Lakeview
yours yellow?
and,
I think it's really light green, or it's supposed to be really light green, because existing is dark green.
so that's sewer line extension?
Yeah,
Okay.
and with the new software, this is very rudimentary, but with our new software, we expect to be able to paint a much clearer picture,
Well,
especially,
if you got GIS, you'll be able, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so the one going up towards Angel Heights in that area, that's all sewer line extension too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that helps. Thank you.
And you're up. Staff report.
You're up again.
Right.
Thank you for those maps, by the way.
What?
Thank you for those maps.
You like
Oh.
pictures.
Pictures are helpful, yeah. Water, been some challenges lately keeping up with summer demand, power outages, et cetera, but we're working on inspecting Rock Creek Inlet. I know we talked about this the last time, but we have a date on the calendar, September, to look at that. Reviewing Hagerwald Well as well as a potential option, but we had a lot of use this summer so far. So team's been good about that. Another thing to kind of note, materials are becoming scarce. We're starting to see supply issues now and water pipe and fixtures. So
Carolyn, do you know the
Yes.
threshold for when we have to entertain water rationing as people stop watering their lawn? Do you know
I
what?
don't know. I don't know that we still have quite a bit in the well. We just like prefer to use that as a emergency backup source.
If water is getting close, that watering the lawn is a luxury
Yeah,
instead of
That's
firing
Vegas.
up, instead of
That's the way I
firing
look
up
at
the
it.
emergency well.
yeah. I mean, it may be something to discuss at future city council meetings, what we want to think about with that, but it's definitely something to consider as we, we talk about annexing and growing. Whether we want to, when do we want to do another reservoir, and how we want to approach, future demand needs on the current
Dropping
system.
oil up at the top of the hill.
It's gonna be winter like tomorrow. It's gonna start
So
raining
I know
again.
that it's for a
Yeah,
situation
we
that
have
hasn't even
agreed.
happened, but out of curiosity, how do we ask city residents to conserve water? Is it a please do this, or is it an
It's,
emergency
Depends
order?
on-
so we
When
we
it's-
have the ability to do an emergency order. And notify people. We haven't done much education on that because we haven't had to use it. But it's there if we need to.
You had something, Ken?
No, I didn't have anything. Just listening
Oh,
to
okay,
the
somebody, I
piano.
thought it was your voice.
No, it was
Oh,
me. I was
right.
saying you could start with a please. And then if it gets worse, that's when we have to start, actually making rules. But
It's a should shall. Sorry, what else?
Oh, we already talked about wastewater. Streets, lots of painting. You guys have probably seen striping, now completed. They finished sidewalk repairs, and we do still have some panels to fix, to replace, but all the concrete cutting is completed. Our transportation improvement board grants are due at the end of next week. So projects that we identified in the transportation improvement plan that are eligible will be submitted as part of that grant cycle. So cross your fingers for us. Equipment, we got our mower. It's on site and it's being utilized. Yeah, that's very exciting. So we're looking at excising the old one in the coming weeks. Still on the lookout for a vac truck. I've been re-inspired as we had a couple vac truck calls that we needed to have done in the past few weeks, and they range about $500 to $1,000 a visit every time you have to call a vac truck to come in and clear a line. So
Do we have alerts coming to us from auction sites or something when a vac truck comes up?
the auction that's just here in town, it's a pretty large equipment auction. He knows we're looking. There's a couple of vendors that I spoke with at the Public Works Association. They're kind of looking. So, and then Bill Sexton's been really involved, motivated he likes equipment, I guess. So he
Yeah.
also,
It'll be good to get that.
Mhm.
Money's already put aside and everything. That's awesome.
yeah, Facebook Marketplace.
Carolyn, what was going on down by El Rio? Looked like Roto-Rooter was working on something. Was that a city or was that something else?
Probably El Rio.
Yeah, so that's one of the situations I was talking about, but El Rio had backups, and so they had everything in the building scoped, and they said it's not you, and so then we had to bring in somebody to look at our line, and it's possible there is has been a shift there, so.
So that's what they were doing is they
That's
were
what they were
scoping our line.
Yep.
Okay, and they didn't find it, or they may have found
Well, so they ordered out, and there was like, I think it's, it could be roots.
it. Yeah.
But when they rooted, no roots came back and they didn't see any roots. It appears that it was actually before that tree that they were suspecting was the culprit. But they think that it was actually like a deviation in the pipe. So that's
So,
not, yeah, so that's not great. Any kind of grease that comes down from El Rio
Yeah.
would then just exacerbate that.
They didn't pick it up on the scope or
Their
they didn't
camera,
go far enough.
the camera that Chinook Plumbing uses is terrible, and you can really
I'm
just
aware of that. That's why I don't
Yeah.
use them anymore.
no. So I don't. They're very available is the
Mhm.
difficult part. So if you need someone to clear a line quickly, use
Yeah,
them.
I've got somebody else if you need a number.
I should probably
So
get
what
it.
are, so
Public comment time, don't forget.
Sorry.
what's that? So where are we at with it then? Are we gonna have to dig up the line? or-
No, so it's clear currently, and so we're monitoring at this point. It would be on our next like slip lining cycle.
Okay, yeah.
I'm hopeful it would be a candidate for that because they were still able to get their camera through the deviation. So it should be something that they're able to slip line and address that way. So yeah, digging up the sidewalk is the worst case scenario.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I saw him down there the other day, I thought,
Oh, man. Well,
digging up the side of the road.
well, and when you see that the service line goes underneath the sidewalk, you're like, oh, man, why didn't you just go out to the main line in the middle of the road?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just one of those.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have anything else.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So we got some engineering, qualification, statements of qualifications in, so we'll be reviewing those, for on-call services related to a variety of things, water, sewer, streets, also working on our standards. Engineering standards is a key one that we're excited to get going on. So those may be coming to you, if we can negotiate them at the September meeting. And then we do have an annexation that we received on September 30th, and we have 60 days to hold a meeting with the applicant to decide whether or not it's a go, no go. And so that means that we would need to have a special meeting by August 29th. And so August 29th is a Monday. Is everyone available on that day?
You talking 6 p.m.?
Yes, 6 p.m. Yes. Mhm.
Yep, I'm good. Take it off.
There are no dots on my
Fine.
calendar.
Okay. Perfect.
I'm gonna put special meeting in.
Yes.
August 29th, huh?
And then,
I'm good.
Okay, perfect.
We know you're good.
Howard?
Well,
You're all right.
Is there a public hearing or anything?
It's, so the public hearing isn't required at this stage. So the way that this process works for an annexation is they submit a notice of intent. Council has the ability to decide whether it's a go, no go, or to modify the boundaries of that annexation proposal. And then if council says, here's what it is, and we're going to go forward, then they do a formal petition for the people for that area. And that's where the public hearing is at. And there's also a portion where you also have to send it to the boundary review board as well within that process. So it will take some time, and there's a bunch of steps that are legally required. If council chooses not to go forward with it at the intent stage, there is no appeal for the applicant. So it's nothing we can appeal. So and with that presentation to council, there's again outlined very specifically sort of what information we provide on what decisions need to be made for that annexation. The other thing is training, that council training. One of them is called informed consent training. And there's a couple of different options. One is a 90-minute kind of a live virtual session on the topic. We can also do a half day or a full day, and that would be with the planning commission and the city council. I would just throw it all together.
Live virtual.
So,
Sounds
right,
awesome.
right. And then staff would do another couple of days for more advanced training. And so if we want it during the day, they're booked out, their book calendar starts in October, but if we're just doing like evenings and weekends, their time's a little bit more available. And so I don't know if there's any days that you have booked off. I mean, I know we all would like to spend Labor Day together, right?
I
We
thought
started
were
off this
doing
season
all
of
holidays.
Right, all holidays, special meetings, yeah.
I'm open. I'm gonna be out of the country a lot of September, but I can
Okay.
do weekends or
Okay,
evenings or whatever.
okay,
We'll get it figured out.
okay.
Yeah, well, Labor Day I was gonna be out of town.
That was a joke. It was a bad-
Well,
Yeah.
it was a bad one. We were-
Still no, Rob. Too soon.
Michael, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, Labor Day, Memorial Day, every year we're doing stuff on those, right?
Yes, yep.
Part of our thing. So
I
perfect.
didn't put it in the application.
So what part of
Too soon.
September are we talking about?
Are we still talking about a 90-minute live virtual or are we talking about what's?
I was talking about
I
a
like
90-minute live
virtual.
virtual, so it could be an evening meeting.
Right.
When, I mean, are we talking the end of the month, first of the month? middle of
When
the
are you
month?
available? Christie's out all month.
Well,
Okay,
I'm
'cause
out
once we
from
look
like
at
the
early October.
12th till the end of the month.
Okay.
I am out of town, like Yellowstone, the whole last week of September.
Let's look at early to mid-October.
Okay.
It's
I
summertime.
love Yellowstone. Okay, sorry.
I'll be,
Sidebar.
Wistfully.
Yom Kippur's on the 5th, by the way.
Okay.
I'll be back after the 6th.
Of October.
We're looking at, oh,
We're looking
wait,
at
Sorry,
October.
yeah, he's
We're
out
looking-
till
oh,
October.
okay.
We got summer.
Yeah, we
ahead
got
of us,
back
man. Let's finish that.
I got a shoulder replacement sometime in October, but I don't know it yet. So,
Okay, well, we'll schedule the meeting first and then you can schedule that.
There you
Will your
go.
mouse hand work?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be on Paintfield.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
It'll be great.
I'll say aye.
I can work on the rest of it though, but yeah, okay, so 90-minute, and then cause I also need to coordinate with the planning commission as well, so. First week of October, okay. And that's all I have, been just getting ready for the executive session and coming up. So that's it.
Okay, so before we do that, we need to vote on the vouchers. I don't know that they brought up to speed on the vouchers. So that's
What I'm looking for here.
so this is what the bills and get me 3 signatures, like more than welcome to look through it and go, hey, what gives or looks good. So that's what that yellow sheet is you were here, that's the roll call.
okay.
And then there'll be a sign sheet, another sheet to sign that you have perused the vouchers and you feel that everything's on and up.
I forgot 2 things, I'm sorry. One is, community partners, or sorry, One Prevention Alliance is looking to, we've been a community partner for them and they just want to make sure that we're okay adding us to their list of coalition members. So if there's no objection. I love it. Okay. And then the other one is, I talked with, the sheriff is requesting that we do a 6-month extension of the contract so that the new sheriff has time to come in and then make some changes. So they're not inheriting a contract that lasts forever. So if ever there's consensus that I'll work on a draft to do a 6-month extension.
Makes sense.
No, sorry. Thanks.
Quick question on the vouchers. Waste Connections. We've got 2 shred cards.
Yeah.
32 gallon and 90 gallon. Where are those at?
One's in front of the bathrooms here. The other
Okay.
one is downstairs in archives.
Okay. And I'm looking at the price of them. When I was still with the sheriff's office, there is a state contract for shredding services for like $3 a bin. They come in and, I mean, it's on the state contract. So you might take a look at that. We saved the county buku bucks. And then when I went up to the school district, which was their athletic director, I put them onto it. And they would hang on to all of their stuff and put it in a room and have this big truck come in and twice a year shred it. It costs them a bunch of money. And yeah, they have these great big bins that they bring in and they'll come in once a month or once every 2 months or whatever.
And that's who we use. Waste Connections.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's not Waste Connections.
It's not Waste
No,
Connections?
it's a city or it's a state contract through what is it, King County, whatever it is. But might be something to take a look at. Might save us some bucks.
Cool.
I would entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
Mr. Mayor, just to note, this voucher approval only requires 3 out of your 4 votes. And if Councilmember Wyatt is not comfortable at this point because he just came on board tonight. He could always abstain. That would be up to him. And if you have 3 other votes, it'd still pass. But I just thought I'd throw that out there and make sure that everybody feels comfortable with their decision.
Christie.
Thanks, Ken. I would like to make a motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
Second. First and
I would-
second, in discussion.
No,
In person next time.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
I will. All right, any reports or issues for the next meeting? Anything for the greater good?
What was the WAGAP thing? Is that just for us to?
All the
It's just information.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Cool.
information.
We are having an executive session though, right, Mayor?
Yep, I wanted
Don't run
to
away.
make sure that it was the last of the
Mhm.
meat of the order here. So we've already done patients, so it's 14 that we're working on.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We already took care of 13.
yeah, we took care of 13.
Okay, we are going to move into executive session for RCW 42.30.110(1)(I) to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency is or is likely to become a party. So it is 7:56. Let's do 15 minutes. Is that 8:11 is when we'll come back out of executive session.
Second, let me share my screen. 1 minute.
No, we don't lose.
She's gonna create a different meeting.
No,
So you
yeah,
need to
so,
clear the room, and if you want to come back in at
yes.
8:11, then you can welcome to come back in then.
Okay.
And we'll come back out and tell you if we're going to extend or invite you back in.
Thank you, Sean. Bye. Yeah, I fixed it. All right. I got a whole, I'll see. Let's see if I can get it.
She wants to
Okay,
come watch us.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
If she wants to come in and see the adjournment.
Yes.
Hi.
Oh, you made it back.
I was gonna go look out there, but then I thought that'd be
Oh,
weird.
yeah, let's
Yeah, lady.
see. I'll go check for the front door.
That's me.
Better watch.
She probably left. She was on her phone most of the time anyway. I've already closed my tablet.
Okay.
Dave.
Close your mouth. Is that it? Meeting's being recorded.
Yes.
I adjourn the meeting at 8:12. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ken, good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Leona, who signs where?